Hey everyone, welcome back. Here we are with my first Tenet gun I felt that really made a difference. This is the Tenet Tetra, but don't let the name fool you. It is an absolute beast of a weapon and completely unrelated to its predecessors. First, just listen to it fire. It sounds like an actual weapon. It doesn't sound like that doot 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 of the original, like shooting crayons. Now let's move on to the stats. As a reminder, this thing has gotten massive buffs over the Prisma and Vanilla variants. It sports nearly 3 times more critical chance, up to 28 from 10, and a tad more critical damage at 2.2 instead of 2. It also sports increased status from 30 from 24, but that's not all. The magazine was increased to 80 from 60, and the weapon gained a small amount of base slash the Prisma lacked. But the biggest change is the base damage. This thing has 60 base damage up from 38, and that's before the Kuva bonus, which can push it all the way up to 96. The Prisma Tetra I'm going to show you today is only 38.5% heat, so it has a ways to go until it reaches 60 for its full potential. I wanted to make a viral heat build at first, but in the end I think I'm going to settle on Toxin or Cold, as this weapon has a secret punch I didn't expect. Tenet Tetra has 2 fire modes, an auto mode and a semi-auto that expends the entire magazine to shoot a massive grenade, similar to Brahma's shot. It requires all 80 shots in the magazine and will force a reload if you don't have it. The 2 fire modes require manual switching with the alt fire button, but you aren't probably going to switch between the 2 modes too often as they have very different builds. So let's hop right in. I got plenty of builds for you today. This first build is based around the auto fire. A few things have changed since my original predictions video on the Corpus Liches. If you want to see my initial thoughts on every single one of the new weapons, check them out at the card at the top right. Anyways, a few things have changed like I said. The first one is a big one. Galvanized aptitude, and the other weapon variants for pistols and shotguns, surprise surprise, is bugged and does not work on projectile weapons currently. That's right, you heard that right. And I hope DE really fixes it, because a lot of gunfire power comes from this mod. That isn't to say the weapon can't work without it though, so this first build tries to take advantage of the kinetic ricochet rounds. I've noticed with punch through, it will penetrate enemies without ricocheting, but still ricochets off terrain, walls, and floors. So actually, unlike most weapon setups, we are going to run both punch through mod, which is prime shred, doubling for fire rate, and a rebound type mod, which is in this case the weapon augment. This lets you shoot down hallways or through crowds and ensure you apply maximum damage. If you hit a wall or aim downwards and hit the floor, they will just bounce back into enemies. You will notice the best benefit of this is on steel paths, where enemies are much more numerous and bunched together. This is your hallway warrior build. We're running a 100 munition setup, so galvanized chambers should be really easy to proc for the full 200% multi-shot permanently with the armor ignoring slash procs. As I have prime shred on the build, I do find we can fit critical delay on it also. The fire rate penalty isn't too much. Oh yes, so one stealth buff. Alongside critical deceleration finally getting buffed to 200% critical chance, all other fire rate corrupted mods also got changed to 200%. Patch notes also mention prime blunderbuss, so expect that to come from Barrow soon, maybe in a week? We are running our Bane as always to double dip the slash DOTs. Amalgam Serration we can fit it for the bonus sprint speed, and Vital Sense for your typical crit damage. This build doesn't include viral, but if you really wanted, I would suggest the volatile quick return Primer Zor's build focused around viral. You can easily proc an entire crowd in a 12 meter radius with 1 or 2 viral stacks, and as you know, the first one is the most important anyways. Finally, I slotted terminal velocity because this is a projectile weapon. Ammo economy is fine, so let's test this toy out. I'm choosing to run arcane acceleration on this build, but it isn't mandatory. The reason it's here is because the second build I will show you after actually requires it. You can see even without viral, it still works really well. I would say this particular build suits closed to small tile sets the best with standard geometry, so tighter Grenier tiles, the Void Tower tile set, and Corpus ship tile sets would let you take the best advantage of ricochet rounds here. The enemies still die extremely easy from the slash procs. Even if I shoot the body, it still works very well. While it isn't the best DPS, that's because I don't actually think the auto fire mode is the best part of the weapon, but we'll get to that later. The punch through works really well here because you can easily clearly see it passing through all the enemies, but it doesn't rebound back until the far wall or floor. Terminal velocity makes things much easier to track, but not like they're moving here. All around, I would say a very fun and satisfying build, so let's move to the second one. This is a viral heat build. This is the original build I was going for when I considered going innate heat, but realized it wasn't really necessary because the higher fire rate and perfectly fine critical chance is nice for slash, especially with the corrupted crit chance mod buffs. So this is the first build where I would have preferred innate toxin or cold for viral, because then I could drop one of these mods for primed shred. This means I wouldn't need to run arcane acceleration on this setup, because you can see my fire rate is all the way down to 4 at the moment. That said, you could stack both primed shred and arcane acceleration just like in the first build if you so chose. Besides that, everything else has stayed the same on the build, so let's test this one out. This time the enemies die even easier than before. While we lack the rebound rounds that could be useful in tighter tile sets, and particularly with a magnetized synergy, we have much higher upfront damage from sourcing viral off the weapon itself. On the other hand, if you are using a viral primer build, then you could just go full slash with Hunter's munitions. You can quite easily hit 10 viral stacks due to the high innate status from the weapon. This build is much better at handling open larger tile sets than the first build and is also perfect for open world environments. The heat here works as some added CC to prevent the crowd from shooting back, but it really doesn't matter if you can kill them fast. I can imagine with better arcane support this would wreck shop. A massive upgrade from the pitiful Prisma variant, for sure. Once again, once I change this to Toxin for Viral, I will replace one of the 60/60 mods with Prime Shred. The higher base damage total will increase my slash DOTs, and the higher innate element will also increase my viral weighting. Alright, let's take a look at the fancy alt-fire. The first thing I want to do is pull up the stats of this weapon compared to Brahma. You'll notice that Brahma has higher crit chance, but this is mostly relevant that I'll explain later on. The Brahma actually has slightly lower critical damage and lower damage on the AoE attack and the initial hit. It also has 90% fall off at the edge with linear scaling from 0 meters, whereas the Tenet Tetra has absolutely no fall off whatsoever. Their attack radius is basically equal at 8.3 versus 8 meters. Brahma only has 21% status chance while the Tenet Tetra has 30. Though Brahma does have bomblet advantage to proc more status, but the AoE in these are small, which diminishes their status application effectiveness. It is still better than nothing though. Tenet Tetra only hits once, but with the introduction of Galvanized Chamber, you now have a permanent 200% multi-shot so long as you can kill, which is pretty easy on launchers. So this does reduce the status application disparity between the two weapons. You only really need the first viral proc to matter, as a single shot weapon like either of them is never gonna proc a ton of viral stacks anyways per shot. Another reason why this is super important is the fall off issue. Tenet Tetra has 0 fall off, whereas Brahma has 90% and starts scaling linearly at 0 meters. So this means at half radius, the Brahma already loses almost half its damage and has to apply a viral proc for it to match the damage of Tenet Tetra, but without a viral proc. This also means that at the edge of the respective ranges, Tetra by default hits over 10 times harder than Brahma. This difference I think is where Tetra will pull ahead by being able to take true full advantage of its radius, as Brahma traditionally struggles to kill things at its edge. I'll be showcasing a Brahma quickly afterwards for comparison also. So let's see that build. One thing to keep in mind is that this grenade launcher doesn't launch as far as Brahma shoots, so don't expect it to snipe things across the room. However, you can shoot quite a bit in front of you. Its massive AoE also means you probably want to run prime sure-footed to avoid self-stagger. Anyways, the build. We're still running the standard Amalgam Serration and Galvanized Chamber. You'll see kills are extremely easy to come by, so this is basically permanently active at max stacks. Because the alt-fire dumps the entire magazine, you don't need fire rate, so we pick critical delay here for more crit chance and pair it with vital sense. I'm currently slotting heavy caliber here, but will be replaced with rhyme rounds once I switch the element to toxin so I can have viral. If you pair it with an AoE viral primer like Zorus, you can actually run galvanized aptitude instead of rhyme rounds or heavy caliber. But this will only work once they fix the mod to work on projectile weapons. Hunter munitions is still there because we are essentially using this like a Brahma. Lack of slash means we need to force them with crits. Prime Firestorm pushes the radius all the way out to 13.28 meters with 0 fall off across the entire range, so if it gets tagged, it dies. Finally, our primed Bane, just like before, for double dipping slash. This increases our overall DLT size by 2.4 times. Finally, rifle ammo mutation is mandatory on this weapon. You thought the Brahma had ammo problems? At least it got back 1 arrow per ammo box on the ground when you killed a group. This gun consumes 80 ammo per alt-fire shot, and you only get back partial magazines per pickup. So this mod is absolutely mandatory, and you might even want to stack it with another source too, whether carrier for ammo case or rifle scavenger. Yes, rifle scavenger is a legitimate option for this weapon, although I'll be sticking to just rifle mutation myself and ammo case if I really need it. This is because of the crit chance issue I mentioned earlier. Tenet Tetra has much less critical chance than Brahma, right? Only reaching 84% instead of passing 100 to 105. And we know a slash proc without crits isn't that good. So how am I going to fix that? Well, for me, I'm going to be running this with Combat Discipline and Arcane Avenger so that all the kills I get from the AoEs and self-damage I produce will proc Arcane Avenger for a sweet 45% flat crit bonus. Yes, Brahma can use this also, but the main use of this is to push weapons beyond 100% crit chance, as getting consistent yellow crits is the most important part for any weapon. This is what I feel lets the weapon be super consistent and more effective than Brahma. With the AoE coverage, you basically have permanent uptime on Arcane Avenger as well. Now you have a Brahma with no fall off and higher damage. At 3.0 multi-shot also has very respectable odds of proccing numerous statuses to outpace heavy caliber with 54% status chance per shot once galvanized aptitude is fixed. So let's test this thing out, shall we? You can really appreciate the zero fall off here, watching basically everything take full damage and die so long as slash procs. The reload is a full 2.2 seconds, but at the same time you won't be shooting it as often as Brahma because it actually kills more enemies at once. This is also probably the time you run over the bodies to get ammo back. You also have the option of if there are only a few enemies around, you can switch to primary fire instead. Even though the build is focused around the alt fire, the weapon is good enough that it is still perfectly capable with killing on its primary fire in this setup. Now just imagine what Galvanized Aptitude could do with higher status chance and 80% base damage per status present. So let's pull a Brahma back out to compare. This is the Brahma build we will be running. As the bombs produce many extra hits for status and viral proccing, I have chosen to run Prime Cryo rounds instead to significantly boost the viral rate of this weapon, instead of opting for more status chance from a 60/60 viral mod. Keep in mind this Brahma is innate toxin, meaning it actually has better slot efficiency than the Tetra build I showed you. You can see that while it seems to kill enemies slightly better at the epicenter with higher damage when the bomblets play nice, you have many issues with anything towards the border. I have to shoot multiple times to clear this crowd, honestly 3 to 4 times, whereas the Tetra almost clears them all in a single shot. If you have grouping abilities to CC, this may not be as big of a problem, but the Tetra definitely pulls ahead here. Keep in mind we still haven't slotted the primary weapon Arcanes, which basically nearly doubles our damage output. On a Brahma, twice the amount of little damage at the border is still little damage. On the Tetra, twice the amount of enormous damage is even more enormous damage. So what do you think of our new Brahma? I'm feeling pretty good about this one. I love the way it looks. It honestly looks like a Destiny weapon. High polish and detail, sounds good, feels good, has multiple fire modes and solid stats. It gets around the fallout problem of Brahma as well. Reload is a small bit of an issue, but that's associated with picking up ammo anyways, which you will probably be doing because the enemies are less likely to level shot from this than the Brahma. I wonder if the other weapons will be as satisfying. If this is your first time watching, feel free to leave a like or better yet subscribe. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. 79.5% of you are not subscribed. I'm trying my best to get you new information out always as soon as possible, like I've done with covering Tempest Story and the Sisters of Parvos updates. Stick around if you want to see interesting memes and builds on a nearly daily basis. I'm also preparing to get you the info first as more information comes out. You don't want to miss out on any of that, do you? That'll be it for this video. Thank you all for watching and see you all next time.